Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ. I am joined by Mr. Will, and tonight we are going to be entering the Matrix. So, before we get into tonight's movie breakdown, just want to let all the listeners know if you've been following the show from the very beginning, you'll know that we do the show in seasons, and every season for us is 11 episodes. So, the first season was 1 to 11, then up to 22, and now this show is our 33rd show. And as a result, we'll be taking a little bit of a break following tonight's episode, and then we'll be back in May with brand new shows. Now, on the plus side, we've left a lot of content there. So we have a lot of shows that are available. The first 11 were all audio. Those are on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify Podcasts. The last 11 that we've done are now also on YouTube. So there's material out there. So hopefully you don't miss us too much while we're gone. With that said, tonight, let's get into the Matrix. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Will to give us our summary, and then we're going to have some fun talking about this one tonight. Mr. Will, give the people the red pill, man.
What's going on, CJ? Thanks for the introduction, man. Oh man, this is definitely a challenging movie to review. Sure, we've seen this countless times, but there's so much information to add, just to take away from this flick. CJ and we were just going over this in the pre-production meeting about the nuances and the things we see every time that we watch this movie. It's always something different. So with that being said, um, CJ and I are a part of a group in which we have this continuous conversation about accountability and victimization. We discuss not only the particular selection of such, but we also go into uh, pretty good detail as to why we made the certain decisions we made. Well, what happens when you discover that everything that you have chosen is a simulation, and that your life, let alone your entire existence, is nothing more than fuel for others? Well, that's the Matrix. Visually, this is a very spectacular, dazzling, exciting, and just a very compelling movie that keeps you on the edge of your seat and has you holding on to the reins for dear life. Simultaneously, I would argue that um, this movie could be categorized as a drama, an action flick, futuristic thriller, and is arguably the greatest science fiction movie of all time. Um, it's a series that features cyberpunk story of technological advancement and the rise and fall of humanity as a whole. It discusses the creation of artificial intelligence, which helps to bring about that downfall of humanity and leading the way to a race war, if you will, between humans and AI. Um, Once the machines became self-aware, they started to imprison the humans in these neural interactive type simulations, hence the Matrix. And thus, it also simultaneously, once again, became a fuel source.
There it is. So this is the thing, man. Thank you very much for that breakdown and the summary. So we talked about this earlier. The Matrix like started so many careers on YouTube. Like
Yeah.
so there are so many videos on YouTube, so many blog posts that have been written about not only
Mm-hmm.
the Matrix, but then the whole Matrix trilogy.
Yeah.
I would say that the the two movie series that probably have the most content written about them are probably the Star Wars movies and the Matrix movies. And the Star Wars probably has more, but there's 9 of them, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Matrix has 4, but I bet if there's one movie that people have talked about, written about, it's The Matrix because it's just so layered. And even everything you said there, talking about AI, talking about cyberpunk, even the idea of saying that it's like a drama, it's like a science fiction movie. It's like people say it's a documentary. I mean, like that's how that's how crazy it is. It's just an amazing thing. I want to dial us both back to 1999. I saw this in the movie theaters, and I remember seeing it. I was in college at the time, and one of the teammates on the team, football team, was like, "Hey, let's go check this joint out, The Matrix." And I'd seen the commercials and everything, whatever, but I didn't really know what it was like. I remember watching it and leaving the movie theater and being like, oh my gosh, I saw something that I had never seen before. And there's not too many movies that do that for you, but this one did. When you first saw this, do you remember what it was like when you walked out of the theater?
Yeah, I even remember the theater itself, the seating arrangements, everything. I went with an ex girlfriend, based upon the reviews, um, and channeling that feeling, that energy, that atmosphere. 1999. You're talking about, like you had mentioned in the pre-production meeting. People thought the end of the world was upon us, whether it be due to
Mm-hmm.
the Mayan uh, uh, soothsayers, future, you know, speaking, or just outright with Y2K. I mean, no one
Yeah,
really
I
knew.
remember that. Yeah.
Um, my dad was a programmer, so like he broke it down to me like this is nothing. Everybody's tripping. Nothing's gonna happen. So I never really went berserk or anything like that. My main concern was, man, Dad, you're gonna be at work late, man. Like, what do you like when you coming home, dude? And like you, I was finishing up my bachelor's, so wasn't really concerned with like entering into the quote unquote real world. I was already in the real world
Mhm.
working three jobs. So like watching this movie was a respite. But then after literally concluding that movie, I was like, I should quit my job. I should just go to different islands and yo, we just need to leave. Like we just need to go to somewhere that's deserted. No more human beings, nothing, just us. Just us. Us being me and my ex-girlfriend. And I was just like, yo, I know how to camp. I was a Boy Scout. Like, we could leave this all behind right now.
So the Matrix changed your life like that. So you watched it and you were like, "Yo, I'm doing my whole program is incorrect, man. I need to get on a new joint. I need to get
Dude.
free."
Yo, and speaking of get free, you got to remember Dead Prez, all these joints dropped at that time. Commons like water for chocolate, so like everything's. I'm like, yo, I don't believe in coincidence, so I was just like, yo, look, man, we got to go. We just can't be here. This metropolitan thing that we got going on here, it's not working. We got to go. I don't know where. We just got
How
to go.
about that?
Yeah. The movie
Yeah, it
woke.
was definitely.
The
Go
movie
ahead, go
was
ahead. Yeah, go
wide.
ahead.
Yeah, the movie was had you wide awake. So like when people talk about woke, well, this is what that movie was like, if you will.
Yeah, it shattered. I don't think like the one of the best lines in it is no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for
See it for
yourself.
yourself.
You couldn't even tell people what the Matrix movie was. Like
Mhm.
you're just like, yo, you need to go see this. Like
It was
it's like nothing
indescribable.
you've ever seen before, right? And it's not. I know that we're going to talk a little bit about like influences from it, but a lot of
Yeah.
times those influences weren't even known, and they
No.
weren't in popular culture enough for you to
No.
have a comparison to this. So
No.
I mean, like, it's just it's amazing, and I would say this is probably one of a handful of movies that I've watched all the way through from like the opening credits to the end credits
Mm.
over a dozen times. And like YouTube, this is a YouTube favorite. You can find
Oh yeah.
clips from different parts of this forever. Right now, when I watched it again, I watched it on HBO Max. So that's
Okay.
where I saw it. If people are interested in finding it now, it's probably on a bunch of things, but if you got Max, you get it for free. So that's where I
Yeah.
watched it. I want to start. I want to have like kind of like a broad start with a broad topic that's going to allow us to just really feed into it. And we both kind of alluded to this already, but why do you think it is that this movie holds up so well and is still so influential now, more than 20 years after it's come out, 20 years after it's come out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would have to say because the ground is so fertile. Like when people immigrated to this country or migrated to this country, um, one of the things was the abundance of opportunities, whether it be you could now move up in social status, you could practice the religion you want to, you could
Hmm.
vote, depending upon what century you're talking about, but the opportunity. And I think that's what this movie represents. Whether you're into karate, martial arts, UFC, anything physical, boxing along those lines, some type of physicality, this appeals to you. If you're very philosophical and you wish to pontificate
Hmm.
about, why are we here, this movie will do it for you. If you if you want, literally, this was a date movie for me. So if you want to take someone on a date, um, to view perhaps the building of a budding love story, this is that movie. The gist is that this covers a wide array of things that all of us have in common, regardless of what your background is or what you label yourself or what language you speak. I think this is the
Yeah.
common language.
Yeah. And I get that. I dig that. And I think what resonated, the part of those things that resonated with me was the idea of like the philosophical question of control and
Mm,
choice.
yeah.
And this movie, it doesn't, it's not by none, like you said, none of it is coincidental. It puts very closely certain ideas and concepts next to each other, and it makes you question, is this a system of control, or is it allowing a system of choice? So whether that's talking about, like you said, the idea of a corporate job, right?
Mm,
Is that a control? Or the idea of religion, is that a control? Or the idea of choice and liberation. Like, what do you even have choices that can even get you free in the first place? Like, it's so like that is there, and it's in this movie, and it's just so, it's such a rich project. And then, like you said, then it's also got cool martial arts in it. Like, it's actually got like cool fight scenes.
yeah.
Like, if you like machine guns and Uzis, and it's got that.
This is your
Like,
movie.
this is the movie. Like, it's got all of those things, and it's also like stylistically, it's
Mm,
beautiful.
yes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, who doesn't like wearing black? And whether it was, I don't know what they call it, like the fake leather pleather,
The
or
pleather, the pleather
what,
joints, yeah.
whatever it was. I think that was like the modernized for that period rendition of the X-Men outfits and the
Hmm.
um, Janet Jackson, Busta Rhymes scene, which, by the way, she was once being considered for the role of Trinity, but unfortunately, due
Hmm.
to other scheduling issues, um, she had to withdraw her name from the candidacy. But nonetheless, the influences that go into it, as well as what this movie inspires, um, man, it's something else when you really delve into it.
Yeah, it's so multi-layered. I mean, like, you just mentioned Janet Jackson, but also like Jet Li was one of the fight choreographers on this in the beginning.
Mm.
And
Think,
so like that influenced like how the fighting looked, and then eventually he stepped away from it because he had some creative challenges with what they were doing with it. But just the idea of like bringing that type of expertise just
yeah,
into the idea of the coordination of the fight scenes.
yeah. Goes to show you how intricate everything is, and it's kind of like going to school. You think you got all these separate courses that have nothing to do with each other, and then you realize, oh, they are related. I can borrow from here to succeed there.
Yeah. Yeah, it all ties together,
Hmm.
and it ties together under this idea. I mean, this is obviously a version of like the Joseph Campbell hero's journey
Hmm.
story that we've seen in a lot of films. And Neo is easily like the stand-in for like a Luke Skywalker kind of character, someone who is special but doesn't know why they're special,
Mm.
and has to learn that over the course of trials and tribulations to become informed into this new person that they are. um, I know that there's like some things that you've identified, like some really interesting nuggets
Yeah.
in the movie. You want to lift some of those up, and let's talk a little bit about what those some of those things are.
Well, just before we delve into that, CJ had mentioned something in the pre-production meeting with regards to like the aloofness or the carefree, laissez-faire attitude of Keanu Reeves. Um, I would like for you to present what you told me as far as like going from Speed to
Oh
this
yeah,
for the audience, so they could get a
wait,
better inkling as to what it is that where
got,
we're headed next.
got it. No, I was saying that Keanu Reeves, like, I know that Will Smith was one of the people
Hmm.
that could have possibly been Neo, and that might have really worked because Will,
Right.
Will's versatile. But what I think works so well with the character of Neo and the way that it's played by Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves, like, when I think of him, I think about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, right?
Hmm.
I think about Speed. And in both of those movies, he plays like a character that is not 100% aware of what's happening.
Mm,
Like, Bill and Ted, they're kind of like detached a little bit from kind of regular reality. Speed, he spends the first like 30 minutes of the movie not really even knowing what's going on. He's
right.
on the bus. The bus has got to be at this place. It might blow up. Who am I dealing with? He's uncovering a mystery, right? The Matrix, he spends if the Matrix is 2 hours long, he spends 1 hour and 55 minutes of it not knowing what the hell is going on.
Sounds about right.
Right. And in that sense, he's a great stand-in for the audience because the audience also doesn't know what the hell is going on, which is part of what makes the movie fantastic. And
Definitely
as
is.
he kind of puts it along together, he also, I think, he builds this character that becomes like all powerful and yet still isn't all knowing, which
Mm,
is like this very distinct thing and difference that you don't usually see whenever those things are put together. Usually when someone is all powerful, they also have they also know exactly what to do. Neo never knows that. He doesn't figure that out until maybe the last 20 minutes of the last movie, right? And I'm not talking about the fourth one. I'm talking about the third one.
yeah.
The fourth one we may act like it didn't exist. But I also think like he in this movie, he gets a chance to create a different trajectory for himself as an actor because after this, then he goes on, he does Street Kings because somebody watched this and they were like, oh, you know what? This dude looks pretty good with a machine gun in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody's like, and he's like, he looks pretty good with some martial arts too. And then he gets John Wick. So it's like we were saying earlier, like, how many actors get to create two of the most well-known characters in film,
Mm,
Neo and John Wick, and it's in the same person. And like I was saying earlier to you, like Robert Downey Jr. is a fantastic actor, right?
yes,
It's going to be hard for him to get away from being Iron Man
this is true.
because of how long he was Iron Man and how well people remember him doing that.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves got to do that with Neo for 4 movies. He got to do it with 4 movies of John Wick. He might get other things related to that as well. Who knows how that's going to play out? But this man built a whole career on two movie concepts. So salute.
No, here. I mean, CJ said a lot in a very few space. There's a very minimal space. Um, I think piggybacking along those lines, we got to remember that not only is he able to do this, play a Bill and Ted and be very like lovable but silly and dumbfounded, and you buy it, but he's also able
Mm-hmm,
to still be that same kind of aloof, carefree, clueless person, but standing up for the little guy in John Wick, in the
mm-hmm,
Matrix as Neo. So it's very interesting how
mm-hmm,
you could take that same characteristic and spin it however you want, depending upon whatever genre, whatever film you're in. It's very interesting that he's able to do that. In fact, it goes to prove just how great of an actor he is, which is
yeah,
also
it speaks to his versatility.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that versatility is the reason why the movie is also spoke about and why, 25 years later, we're even talking about it now. I mean, this is a movie that's in the Library of Congress. I mean,
That's right.
you
That's
got
right.
to start thinking like in terms of cultural impact, and like if you
Yeah.
put it into a time capsule, and if aliens were to come and say, "Hey, tell me about your thoughts and ideas and your concerns and your fears about the future," this would be something that you would have to play for them. Um,
Yeah. And then think about like the things that were in this movie that like bullet time, the idea of
mm,
like bullet time stuff. You had never seen that kind of thing
never,
before.
never,
And then you saw it everywhere. It was in commercials, it was in other movies,
definitely
it would be in
parodied.
parodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was parodied in cartoons, The Simpsons, all of those movies had like that in it because of just how much people vibed with that. And here's the thing, which is really kind of amazing, and it kind of gets to an interesting part about this is that this movie, just like the Terminator movies, is about the idea of like robots and AI taking over the world and turning humans into targets, right? When you watch The Matrix, you don't even think about the Terminator.
Mm,
It's so good at telling the same kind of story, but in such a uniquely different way that it doesn't feel like a rehash of the Terminator, which is why no one ever, I don't ever remember anybody saying, oh yeah, the Matrix is like the Terminator. No, because it's
Yeah.
not. Like it's same kind of thing, but it's
Mm.
completely different.
No, that's an excellent point. Um, I think to take it even a step further, philosophically, they're parallel too. It's not necessarily the same thing where you're talking about the destruction of the universe, because that's the next
Mm-hmm.
point for the Terminator, where literally the machines are just going around bucking anything that's organic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Here, no, this is more of a partnership in which the architect eventually, spoiler alert, there's 3 to 4 of these movies. We're not counting the fourth one. But if you want to count,
I'm not counting it.
but if
You
you want to
might
count
want to.
Animatrix, then I guess it's like 1A, 1B. But nonetheless, you're talking about literally a partnership, almost like whether it be a succubus, or even I think it's a finch, which picks out like the stuff between the teeth of a crocodile or an alligator. Either way, there's a symbiosis in which one receives the benefits of the other, and they both work in harmony. Well, the architect says, "Look, we've done this simulation and we've gotten very good at exterminating you individuals in Zion, but we'll give you the opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to start all over again." Um, and I think that parallel of choice, whether it be an illusion or not, I think that borrows into the next concept as far as its influences that CJ was talking about. That I did a little bit of diving into. So in the movie, Thomas Anderson is passing off some software inside of a book in the scene where he says, "Hey, look, if you get caught with this, it's not on me. You don't know me, et cetera, et cetera." Well, that book
Mm-hmm.
was written by, and I'm probably going to butcher this gentleman's name, Jean Baudrillard. Yeah, Baudrillard. So
Sure.
my
Sure.
bad, Jean, for butchering your last name. But
You got the Jean part right.
yeah, I should have called him Jean B. Um, so the book is entitled Simulacre and Simulation. And basically, this is a philosophical debate about, what is reality? Everything that we've become is now nothing more than being a consumer. We just buy things, we live to buy
Mm.
things. And therefore, the things that we eventually buy are merely nothing more than replicants of things that already exist. Um,
Mm.
so that concept of what's real versus what's fake, sound like I'm about to bust into like a Swiss beat joint. She's phony, she's fake. That's the type of people I hate. But
I hate,
nonetheless,
right.
um, but you have this concept of what is real. Is it the perception? Is it the actual idea that makes it real? Is it the physicality of it, the tangibility? Like I'm able to possess it, smell, taste, the whole kit and caboodle. Um, or there's this part in WandaVision where they talk about the boat being replaced bit by bit, and is it
Yes, the
still the
vision
same
part.
boat?
Yeah.
So therefore, this concept appears inside the matrix, where we're discussing things that, what is a shoe? Cypher talks about eating steak, and that he knows that it's his brain being stimulated, and that it's not really going through the digestive system and process and things of that ilk. Um, so I propose this question to you, CJ. Friend of ours says, more people think they play for the away team, but in actuality, they play for the home team.
Mm-hmm.
So if you knew that it wasn't real and you were unplugged or whatever have you, would you pull a cipher, or would you just ride it out?
So this gets into like one of the questions like down the line. No, I mean like so if you once you get, I mean that's like, so I like that question because it gets into like the idea of like the Cypher character, right? Like
Hmm.
Cypher is now, he was in the Matrix, right? Then he gets out and he's got the ability to go back in,
Hmm.
and he's got the ability to compare his life, right?
Yeah.
And to think about, do I want to be here on this ship with Morpheus, who's probably got a personality, like he could probably get on your nerves after a while. I could see that, right? And the rest of these folks, or do I want to be in the Matrix where I can eat like the best steak of my life? I
Yeah.
think that if it's on me personally, I'm probably going to say I'm going to want to think that I would want to stay in
Hmm.
the real world, the quote unquote real world. But I don't know because I don't even know what I'm not even in a position where in real life I got to make that decision. Well, I'm not in a position where I got to make that decision. I do think there's decisions that we make that are somewhat similar along those lines.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit of a different thing. And the end of be all, I'm going to say no. I'm going to take the hero's path,
Mm.
and I'm gonna stay out. But I do think that Cypher's character is interesting because he like he's making an informed decision.
Mm.
And the thing that he always says is that Morpheus essentially lied to everyone because he didn't tell them what they were actually getting into. And even for Neo doesn't have that either. So after he like kind of gets out and he does the first thing where Morpheus kind of shows him what really happened after he throws up and everything, he's sitting there in the room and he says to Morpheus, I can't go back, can I? And Morpheus is like, no, but if you could, would you want to? And it's understood that he doesn't, but Neo in that moment is thinking like most people would, like, yo, you didn't tell me this is what was gonna happen, right? And they always say, and we talk, they say as a point, we don't free a mind after a certain point because you've just been in it too long for you to come out, right?
A la Star Wars.
A la like Star Wars and the Padawans. Yeah, they did take that. They got that one off. But then the thing is like you also don't have the option of going back. Like there's no one like you gonna tell me nobody in Zion was ever like, you know what, man, just put me back in. Nah, I'm good. I had a chance to see this. There had to be some people that was like, nah, I'm good. Because that's also a part of humanity, right? Like yo, we're black people. Like, we want to believe that everybody, all of us are from kings and queens, and all of us are like against slavery and all. That's not true. Like, some of us are descendants of people that were like, no, I'm good at this. I'm good on this plantation. I am. Like, for real, I'm good here. Like, that's a part of it too, as well. So I always thought that Cypher has like a human component to him that you don't agree with. And I mean, he's not like he's right,
Hmm.
but he's got a perspective that I think is valuable in the discussion of what reality do you want to live in.
Mm. It's tough. I think it also goes hand in hand with this theory of what's real and what's fake too, because here you have modern day. We mimic, and I say we as a collective, a lot of behaviors that are not sincere, that are not authentic, that aren't genuine. Um, Specifically, let's take say exercise, right? Um, Humans of yesteryear, I would argue, were more physically fit because they didn't have the same diet that we have today. So, what's
Mhm,
the first thing that individuals do in order to get in shape? They exercise. They mimic things that were done authentically. So people woke up, if it was an agrarian society, and they were in the farm, which was manual labor. Um,
mhm,
a lot of skilled workers, aka carpenters, stonemasons. These individuals were literally utilizing their hands. Smiths, you name it. The entire, for the most part, the entire village, they did some type of physicality, physical based job. Well,
mhm,
you have now, fast forward, now you have individuals where, yeah, we eat healthy foods, quote unquote, and they'll say
mhm,
organic, quote unquote. But those foods are supposed to mimic the foods that were eaten by peasants. The
mhm,
jogging aspect, individuals were jogging because they didn't have engines. So you couldn't get in a
mhm,
car and just bounce or get on a bus or, a subway or whatever have you. You would have to jog, walk. So you're not going to be as heavy. There weren't that many
mhm,
overweight individuals, is what I would argue. There were more, you'd be
mhm.
like, if you saw somebody overweight, you'd be like, how'd you do that? Or even individuals who are, even
Right, right.
individuals where, if you study the history about individuals becoming tan, there was this designer where she was like, I was out on the Riviera, whatever have you, and she came back a little bit more darker, and that became chic. Well, that wasn't, like thousands of years ago. That was in the 20th century. You're talking about like 1940s, 1950s. I say that to say that the authenticity that we talk about with Cypher, saying, hey, I'm making an informed decision. Well, It's like being born. I would argue that when children are born, it's a very selfish act. They didn't ask to be brought here, just like Cypher didn't ask to be brought out of this pod without all of
Hmm.
the information that was at his disposal. We name the children what we want. We don't ask for their input. We don't wait till they get older to have them choose in the naming ceremony. Some people are even upset, outraged if they change their name from whatever have you. Um, with the argument that I was presenting before by Jean B, you're talking about books, clothing, all types of gear. These things are made out of originally raw products, cotton, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's
Hmm.
more synthetic, celluloids. Like these things are not, found in everyday society. You go up and you pick up and you start sewing. No, that's not the case. We have this discussion nowadays of what do they call forever carbons? I mean, excuse me, forever plastics and such. In the
Plastics, yeah,
yeah.
the furrow plastics, right?
So the argument is, look, the AIs were seen as slaves. They felt mistreated and abused, and so it was an uprising. Well, human history would have told you what was happening, what was going to happen next, but instead they continued on that path, which is also similar to Plato's The Cave, where literally you have these individuals about this allegory where they're facing one way in the direction, they can only see shadows, they can't really see
Hmm.
everything else because their
Yeah.
perception is jaded, tunnel vision, et cetera, et cetera. And therefore, when they see individuals who are getting free, they're envious. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Their perception is limited. So that experience itself, that feeling of being held captive, being a prisoner, that metaphor for, hey, Cypher was trapped. And notice the words they use too. Cypher was trapped inside the matrix, and then he was reborn again, and he was freed. And
Hmm.
he's able to now see things for what they are, not for what he wants them to be. But as you discussed plenty of times throughout the past few minutes, that's not necessarily the case. Ignorance is bliss. For some people, they aren't able to adjust, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing too is the idea of choice. That's all that was throughout everything that you were saying.
Mm,
Like, to be able to say I'm going to change my diet is a choice.
mm,
It assumes that I have the ability to decide what I don't want to eat,
right.
which already assumes a certain degree of choice and options that other people don't have. Even saying like I'm going to walk more or run more, not because I have to, but because I want to, is
Mm,
about a certain degree of choice. Even the idea, like when you were saying about the idea of like consumerism and how that kind of ties together with the idea of choice,
mhm,
consumerism is probably one of the main things that gives people the illusion of freedom,
mm,
because conspicuous consumption is based on that premise that I can now buy my way into a certain lifestyle that I don't actually have. So I don't, I may not live, I might not actually be able to afford to live and like to have like Versace be Versace down in real life all the time. But I can spend all my money and do it one night and make the rest of the world, or people that don't know me at all, think that this is how I actually live in life.
oh, you mean like
So there's still,
IG and Facebook and all the individuals who?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Or what we used to do back in like, the early 2000s, you go to the club, you got your one outfit that you might have your one dress shirt that you own and you put it on and you went there trying to, make somebody think you dress like that when really you wear sweatshirts and t-shirts all the time, which is fine, right? It's just a part of kind of what we go through, right? And I think to bring it back to where we started, that's part of what the Matrix, what makes it captivating, is this idea of choice.
Mm,
And like, what are the different control factors that are limiting your choices or giving you the option of choices that aren't really freeing you at all? And Neo's journey is about constantly reconsidering how much he has a choice and how much his choice is actually getting him free.
mm,
So like I think that that's and then there's one other thing I just want to mention real quick. You mentioned the Animatrix,
yeah.
which was a part of this that came out afterward and then became like this kind of prequel part. Well, that's the other thing. Like this was able to expand so much that now you can tell stories about what happened before the first movie and people watch it. Then there was the video games Enter the Matrix that told nuggets of the story
Yeah.
in between the first and the second movie. Then there was a third movie. Then there was like an online community that was maintaining parts of the story. It was so much collateral that was created that allowed people to get in at different points. If you liked anime, they got this. You like the movies, they got this. You like video games, they got this. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant thing. And in that sense, there's probably been nothing else created since then that had that kind of authentic development and growth that came out of it.
Which is ironic due to all of the things that have circulated about it being stolen from a wide array of people, whether it be in the comic book industry or even just regular
Mm-hmm.
lay people who, may have had similar ideas. But again, I don't believe in coincidence. So it's not startling to me that multitudes of individuals would have a similar premise about a
Of
Christ-like
course.
figure, prophet-like figure.
Of
I
course.
mean, if you look at it, I personally adhere to the notion that there are major and minor prophets. All of importance, yes, but I would consider Bruce Lee a minor prophet, for example, where he's able to
Okay.
revolutionize and bring about a philosophy that has an undercurrent that has reverberated till today. Everyone knows about like water, and being like water, whether it be water consuming the glass and becoming the glass. He gives this famous speech, and it's in a Master Killer CD. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's in so many different areas. So, with that, I say 25 years later, we're still feeling the positive effects of the Matrix,
Absolutely.
and we're able to celebrate it in a way of not only admiring it, but featuring parodies and laughing with it, not actually at it. We're able to be influenced in such a way where we create our own spaces that may borrow upon it, or maybe take it to another level. I think that we're also able to share with others who may not have been fortunate to have been born in that timeline, to have witnessed it in that particular moment where it does something
Yeah.
different. Because it's like it was like a cultural event, if you will, sweeping
Absolutely.
all different corners of the globe.
Yeah, and the thing is that the story holds up,
Mm,
even if parts of the like the CGI or whatever,
yeah.
and that can look dated now compared to what we see now. But the idea, the basic concept at the foundation of human freedom is always going to be that's always going to be relevant, right?
Oh, no doubt.
Because everyone like we grow up wanting to, like you said, we grow up, we're born into the world without a lot of choice, and then we spend our whole lives trying to get it.
Hmm.
We want to decide when we're, where. That's why we create nicknames, right? Like all these people, like Thomas Anderson is Neo, right?
Hmm.
Because he wants to create his own identity. So like we create nicknames because we want to have our own identity. We don't get out of our parents' home. We want to live in our own house. We want to have our own job. We want to do all this stuff. Like it's the constant human desire for freedom that resonates with everybody, regardless of like whether you're a computer programmer or a religious theologian. It still matters.
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody's so quick to want to grow up, and then once they find out, this is the Cypher thing, and then once they find out, like, there was
How about it?
there's no reason. Yeah, like, why did I rush to get here when all I got is
Right.
bills and responsibilities? So
Right. And that's why you see people saying adulting is hard. Yeah, it is hard. We didn't know it when we were 12 though.
no,
We were 12. I mean, I can't wait to stay up as late as I want to. Like, like, yeah, but then you gotta get up and go to work the next day.
at
So
6 o'clock.
that's what that is. Right. And yeah, you still gotta get up. All right. So let's get into some of the things that we liked about this. Let's get into the cake on this. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I could probably name 30 things, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna give you three. And these are just different things. And it's going to be a lot of this is relevant to this movie. I'm trying to just
Yeah.
keep it here. The first is that, I love the fact that the Oracle lives in the projects. That's like that's like, I love that. I've always loved the fact that the Oracle lives in the projects. Like it's something about the idea of this fountain of wisdom and knowledge in the place that
Least expected.
you would stereotype it not to be.
Right, right.
Like it's clear. Like as soon as they get on the elevator, I'm like, that's the projects. I've been in buildings like
Hmm.
that. Like I know it right away. When you see the doors, you're like, that's the projects. I've been in doors like that. Even her kitchen looks like the project. He's like, yo, that's projects. Clearly, like she in there baking cake, making cookies. That's project stuff.
I
Like
was
all she
waiting to
needed
find a
was
big spoon and a big fork hanging on the wall made out of wood, yo.
right, right. She needed a can with grease in it. That's
Mm.
all that was missing in the kitchen.
Tub of lard
Cause that's
for
right.
stove.
That's what it is. So I love that, and I just love the entire way that that plays out. So that's definitely one of my cakes things. Um, I also would say that I love the world building of this movie.
Mm,
There's things that are in this movie that are referenced that you don't see, which kind of gives you the idea that there's something else. And we'll talk a little about that'll be one of my questions for you a little bit later. But even like mentioning Zion, they mention Zion, you don't know what it is, you never see it.
mhm,
They talk about the idea of there being like other ships with other codes, but you don't see that. So although you're watching this story that's really about six kind of people, you get this idea there's like this whole bigger thing out there, and you never actually know for sure like who's running the matrix. Like you
mm.
know that something is, but that thing is never really explained. So I like that world building. And then the last thing that I'll say, and you mentioned it before, but it just jumps out, is the idea of how just beautiful, like stylistically beautiful the movie is. Like neat, like Morpheus with the glasses with
Mhm.
no ends on the side and the full leather coat, and he walks
Yeah.
with his arms behind his back, and just everybody in the black suits and with the the sunglasses. It's just stylized so perfectly, and even down to the distinction of the Matrix having a little bit of that greenish tint that doesn't match up with the little bit of the bluish tint of the real world. The thought that goes into that, it just makes for a visually stimulating movie. So those are my cake things that I'm jumping out with.
Yeah, like CJ, like I said last week, I could probably open up a couple of bakeries with all of the different items that I loved about this movie, but I'm going to take it in a different direction. Um, I like the fact that this movie gets me to ask so many different questions. Um,
Mm.
it's so thought provoking that um, I come away each time that I've watched it, and I don't watch too many movies over and over, but this is one of the few that I do. I'm always left with a new question. I'm left feeling like, inner space. Then this is number two. Inner space is deeper than outer space. The mind
Absolutely.
is so miraculous. The human body as a whole is. It's a perfect imperfect machine. Um, and the way that the choreography is done, the way that individuals are able to deliver their lines in such a very perfect way, the meticulousness that they went into in creating, whether it be an accent or a verbal cue or nonverbal cue, like all those things help me to appreciate the craftsmanship and the creativity and the design that went into this. And then last but not least is the influences. I don't know, when CJ and I were growing up, there weren't too many people who liked the things that we liked, and if you did, you were considered, I don't know what the hierarchy is, but is it like nerd, geek, spaz, whatever, like, so there wasn't too many of those, but like I like Japanese animation. I like graphic novels. I like comic books, cartoons. So like the to see all those things or a deviation of those things in the movie brought glee
Hmm.
to my 21-year-old, 22-year-old self, um, you know, 25-year-old self, like seeing all these things over and over and over in those types of movies once they were brought to the cinematic universe. I mean, like some of these things you're talking about, like Ghost in the Shell, that came out in 80, like, excuse me, 95. I was in high school. CJ and I were in high school, and literally that was like the turning point, like for a lot of things where all these different cultures collided. You would see the influence of hip hop, you'd see the influence of rap, you'd see the influence of reggae,
Hmm.
R&B, but then you'd see a twist in a Japanese cartoon like Ghost in the Shell. You would see Angela Bassett in Strange Days rocking dreads with colors, and
Hmm.
you would see little traces of your childhood with Alice in Wonderland going through the rabbit hole, and when Neo
Yeah.
meets,
Also,
you
yeah,
see the
huge.
lady
Yeah.
with the rabbit. You would see like so many different things, and so certain things that you were not even familiar with. Like when doing additional research on this, I had no idea what Metropolis was or Necromancer was. But then once I learned that, oh, these are novels and movies, respectively, from 1927 and 1984, now it gives me a more fulfilled appreciation where I'm saying, oh, wow, these guys did their homework. They really did some time and some research, and they were bringing,
Yeah.
like making gumbo. So yeah, definitely those are my three, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, and then how about all those things you're talking about, which at one time would have been considered, like you said, might have made you be labeled a nerd or something, became the things that were cool.
Yeah.
Now you flip to being the person that people came to ask questions about. When I saw this, what did this mean? Like what was that? Like that was cool. Like it's just I mean, like you said, it's a great movie. All right. So as far as the hate goes, I don't really have a lot for this, but I got two things. And I'm probably really grasping at straws when I
Hmm.
say these things, but I'm gonna say them anyway. Um so the first thing is I never really felt the love story part of it. I always felt
Mm.
like it was a good plot device. And it was like the one thing about this movie that's great is like it's got so many different mysteries in it. Like the
Yes.
mystery of what the Matrix is, it's
Hmm.
got the mystery of whether or not Neo is the one, and then it's got the mystery of what did the Oracle tell Trinity.
Yeah.
And that mystery hangs like halfway through the movie to almost the end of it when she finally says, the Oracle told me that I would fall in love with the one is you, so you got to be alive.
Mm.
Right? And I get that, and it's a good payoff. I just never really bought her really feeling like she loved him. I just never bought that they spent enough time that would be what would happen. And you're seeing it. So it's not like when you see like one of the things about and I think this is why in the Matrix Reloaded they dial it up a lot. Like they
Mm.
show them like being together, the intimacy, the love, them being together. That's why they show it because it's almost like they're like, yeah, we didn't really build this up enough. Now we got to kind of give you this so you can kind of see it. And sometimes I just think there's not really a lot of really like a chemistry like that in the beginning. That's my thing. Um, the second thing is the ending. So the movie, there's no way, knowing the whole story now, there's no way the ending could really happen in this movie. And I get that part. I also just felt like the ending was kind of flat somehow. I don't know what
Mm.
I wanted, but I don't feel like I got it. Now I will say that I don't think it hurts the movie, and it's not going to hurt the score, my popcorn at the end. I just felt like I never really got like Neo kind of stepping out of the phone booth, taking off and flying. Okay, what happens next? And maybe that's a part of the Hollywood machine that like if you end something with a little bit of a cliffhanger, you give an opportunity for there to be a sequel. But anyway, those are my two things. And admittedly, I'm grasping for straw. I'm grasping at straws on both of those.
Wow, that's interesting. See, I didn't have that take with regards to Neo hopping out of the booth and flying off. Like I saw the
Mhm.
Superman parallel, of course, obviously, but I also thought it was like Star. I also thought it was like Star Trek, like going off into the unknown and explore and being in a space explorer and freeing your mind. Like that was the main theme for me, where
Mhm.
Morpheus would continuously say, "Free your mind," meaning let go of all the limitations that are self-imposed, pursuing things to the fullest, regardless of what they may be. So, with that being said, I don't have any complaints about this movie.
Perfect.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm not going
Okay,
to
so you
nitpick.
didn't bury you
Yeah, I'm not going to
so you
nitpick.
didn't bury the lead.
Mm.
You didn't bury the lead on what your popcorn score is going to be.
Well, I don't think there's a need to when you've heard me say ad nauseum, yo, this movie has defined a culture, generations, the influence. I mean, like you had reminded me, they're about to do another one.
Yeah, and I got questions about that.
Yeah.
So all right, so let me jump into my questions. So I got three. The first is going to be in the movie. Second two are a little bit
Okay.
outside of it. I'm gonna start about the in movie first. Is Neo really the one?
Yeah, this one is tough. So I'm not sure if he's even a human being. If he's a cyborg, if he's an alien, maybe an amalgamation of all of them. Um, you know, who knows? Um, but what I do know is this: it says definitively that there are predecessors, and that there are
Hmm.
multiple variants of him. Now,
Mm-hmm.
he's the only one who's deviated from the script. So that has to
Mm-hmm.
distinguish him in some way, shape, or form as the one above all. And I don't mean the Marvel character who's supposed to be an
Yeah.
anagram for God, but I mean that he's supposed to be, the Neo of all Neos. So yeah, I'm gonna say that yeah, he is the
That he
one.
is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, like I've thought about that one, and what brought that question to me was, in that scene where they go to the Oracle, when the lady asks him to sit down, she
Yeah.
says, you can wait here with the other potentials, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So it's like, and even like, all the kids in that room are doing like different kind of things that are outside the bounds of the Matrix or outside the bounds of conventional reality, including the little kid that tells him, you know
The spoon
there is
joint.
no spoon.
Spoon. Yeah.
There is no spoon, right? So that's what made me think that. All right. Here's my second question. Should there have been a sequel to The Matrix?
This one is another tough question because when we were talking about this in the pre-production, I was so adamant that yeah, there had to be. You couldn't leave
Mm-hmm.
it just like that. But after this discussion and weighing some things in my head, I'm like, I don't know, man. The progression steadily got worse. So, do they make changes, etc.? Like I'm playing this what if thing in my head, and quite honestly, I'm conflicted, man. I, I'm because
That's a
there's
good question. Hey, that's a good question. If that's what your answer is, right?
because I mean, like, it is a good question because you start thinking about the great scenes that are in some of the other flicks and the
Mm-hmm.
introductions of different characters that you like. Like I like the twins in the second one. I
Mm-hmm.
like Seraphim
Mm-hmm.
in and him escorting the new version of the Matrix. Um, the new Oracle due to the untimely passing of the actress who played her in the original. Um, so like these things come to my mind where I'm like, you can't play the what if game because if they don't do it, then these things never occur. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's a tough one because imagine us sitting here right now and there had never been a sequel, and we're just talking about this movie. It would still be, I mean, we would probably be sitting here saying, "Gosh, I wish they would have made a sequel to this movie,"
Yeah,
right? Just to see like what the story happened.
definitely.
At the same time, like my perspective, and you alluded to it, is that each movie after this was a little bit less good than the one before it.
Mm.
So Reloaded isn't as good as Matrix. Revolutions isn't as good as Reloaded. Resurrections isn't as good as Revelations. I mean, what is it? Revolution. Sorry. So it's like if that decline in quality happened, it makes you look at the whole picture differently.
Definitely.
So that's that question. All right.
Rest in
So then
power,
here's the next
Gloria
thing.
Foster. My by the way.
Yes. So this is the last question. This kind of gets to what's happening now. So Warner Brothers has said that they are going to make another Matrix movie,
Right.
but they are not going to be using Lana Wachowski to make it. So they're going to have a different director, everything. So here's my question for you. Would you rather see a sequel to The Matrix Resurrections that continues and closes out the story of what happens to Neo and Trinity after that movie? Or would you rather see a reboot from scratch that wipes out all of the things that have happened so far?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough because one, I don't like typecasting, but yo, Neo is Keanu Reeves, and Keanu Reeves
Mm,
is Neo, and
mhm.
it's downright on the border of blasphemy to say otherwise. But you'll appreciate this analogy. New football regime comes in, new coach, new GM. They're working in tandem. They're brought in simultaneously. What's the first thing they do? They bring in their own people. They're on their own coaching
Change over
staff.
everything.
They bring in their quarterback if they can, or whatever have you. Like new system, my system, and
Mhm.
sometimes it
Mhm.
works, sometimes it doesn't. But you want to go out on your own terms. You did it your way
Mhm.
because you don't know how many times you're going to get that shot. So with that being
Yeah.
said, I don't like corporate figures getting in the way of creativity. I don't like how they try to monopolize and monetize everything. I don't like the way that you got a bunch of bean counters trying to limit the creativity. Sometimes you got to spend money to make money. Um, so I'm gonna throw a curveball and say throw everybody out, new joint. If you're getting rid,
Start from
start from
scratch.
scratch. It's gonna happen sooner or
Start from
later.
scratch.
These people can't play forever. I mean, what's Keanu in his 50s now?
Yeah, he
You know what
is.
I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
mhm,
Because that it's either no, I don't. It's kind of like a no-win situation
of course
because
not.
if half the people want to see the continuation, another half are like, "Nah, let me see something brand new. Like I want to
Yeah,
just start me over." Like, and that and the thing is that it's not like rebooting Spider-Man
no,
where the character is Spider-Man and you can kind of have three different people play it and it's okay. Neo, like you
simultaneously.
said, Neo is Keanu Reeves.
Hmm.
Like it's such a it's so they're so closely linked
Yeah.
and they're linked in the story, so it'll be a little different. All right, man. That's my three questions. What you got for me on the question front?
Oh, also, rest in power to Mary Alice, who also played the Oracle as well, who is no longer.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So both of the ladies, Gloria
I
Foster.
didn't realize she passed away.
Yeah, 2 years ago, 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, July 27th. Um, but definitely the work is appreciated. Um, her portrayal, definitely another standout piece in the movie. My questions for you are, and in no particular order, what makes a person a person?
Mm. Yeah, this is about the idea of like identity and choice and all
Mhm.
this thing. So this is so like like this is a great subject that's in the show Westworld. So
Mm.
if you got HBO Max, you can see Westworld if it's still on there. But
Oh no, it
Westworld
is.
was it's still okay. So Westworld is like part of this family of movies and television shows that deals with what happens when AI rebels because AI always rebels, right?
Mm.
And part of the thing is this notion of what distinguishes people from robots and can robots actually have real personhood. And what I think about this, and I think it's like kind of like in a movie like The Matrix too, is that, you know, The Matrix gets started because mankind creates AI and then AI creates robots and then, kind of goes off the rails from there. We are now in 2024 standing at the precipice of that same thing
Hmm.
where we have AI, we have OpenAI, ChatGPT, all these things. AI is becoming integrated into everything. And in some cases, it's kind of been there. Like Siri was AI in a certain way, and that's been on your phone for last 6 or 7 years.
Used
And
by the
so
military at
much,
first too, though. By the way.
right. And so much focus is put on the idea of intelligence. And what I think what will always distinguish people from whatever technology can create isn't that people can't do things fast.
Mm.
It's that people have a internal consideration system that makes us have to react slower. Because for us to do anything, we have to be able to think about it and we have to feel it. And you actually feel the thing first before you make the decision.
Mm.
So sometimes, because that alignment has to be there, or because there's not alignment there, those are the things that make our considerations different. So what makes a person and distinguishes us from the animal kingdom, which is more running on the idea of your what I want to say, the idea of your instincts, or the technology field, which is more running on the programming and the strictly the intellectual side, is that people are having to take into account our feelings and our thoughts to make a consideration for whatever our decision is going to be.
And here I thought you were going to pull out the John Wick choices and consequences line when you're talking about separating. Man, you missed your shot, man. I mean, it's so dope.
I did. I
But
did. I did. I wasn't thinking of. I'm stuck on the Neo version of Keanu Reeves. I'm not thinking about the John Wick version.
speaking of which, CJ has a dope fan fiction idea, theory, hypothesis about John Wick being Neo and vice versa. So maybe we'll
Oh,
get into
John Wick is yeah. John Wick is the dude from Street Kings.
yeah.
That's what he is. He was that guy before he became John Wick. That's what it is.
Oh man, that's dope. Um, Wow, that's it. But your answer is pretty is very thought provoking in the sense that um, who would have thought that something like as simple as a movie like The Matrix would get you to start thinking about duality, would get you to
Hmm.
start thinking about um, the ability to exist separately, the mind and the body simultaneously. Like these are the type of things that a movie like this, and the reason why it's in the Library of Congress, that brings about. Um, my next question then is the real world just another matrix? Is it a
Yeah.
matrix within the matrix?
Yeah, this is a good one too. So here's the thing. So I'm not gonna. So I know, like, I know that people say The Matrix is a documentary,
Yeah.
and I understand why people say that. And I know some people say like, "Yo, we're living in simulation."
Mm-hmm.
I get why. I don't. I'm not. I don't prescribe to that, but I get it. I would say that what we're actually. I don't. I wouldn't say we're living in the Matrix, but we are part of a program.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is that I think as human beings create structures and institutions to guide the development of human beings. And depending on how you operate within that created system, it's going to create a pathway that logically kind of pushes you in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I mean by that? So like, okay, think about the high school you went to, or not just think about your school in general. Like you went to a public school, there's a certain program in a public school. There's a certain set of values, a certain way things operate. You go to a private school, there's still a school, but it's
Mm.
going to be a little bit different. If you go to a private school that's a religious private school, then that's going to be a different track altogether. Those three things are going to start pointing people in different directions based on your education, based on your economics, based on your ideology, based on how smart you are, based on the opportunities available to you. All these things start pushing these directions, such that when you get older, you find that the things that you are interested in, that you like, that you're about, there's also 10,000, 20,000,
Mm.
100,000, a million people that are also into that. So when you were saying like, you were into like manga or anime, yeah, so was like 10 billion people are into that, right? Because like it's not so distinct or so different that it's not like people can be into it. Like why do so many people, so many men in their like 30s and 40s start doing BJJ?
Mm.
Why does that happen? Because it's a program that pushes you in that direction. Why do so many people, men, when they get older, they start playing golf? How'd that happen? Like there's a program that gets you prepared to do that, right? And you're in it, and you very rarely consider, how did I get here? Like why how did I end up standing here outside on a Saturday morning playing golf? Like I don't even, like, because when you were 12, you hated golf. Now you're in your 40s, you love it. How'd that happen? That's part of the program, right? It's kind of pushing you in that direction. What I will say is that every once in a while, the creator and its infinite wisdom throws human beings into the mix that disrupt the program. And when the program is disrupted, those people bring an idea or a concept of reality that is so distinctly different that it forces you to reconsider the program that you're on.
Mm.
So, how many people have changed their way of looking at stress management based on the words of Marcus Aurelius in the Emperor's Handbook, right? That was written centuries ago. How many generals have reconsidered the idea of warfare based on the ideas of
Mm.
Shaka Zulu that predates colonialism, slavery, all the things that should have wiped that out?
Mm.
How many people every day have changed their concept of compassion and love and struggle based on Martin Luther King Jr.'s letters from a Birmingham jail? So there's individuals that are thrown into this thing, into this program, kind of like the Matrix, that disrupt it enough to get you to think a little bit different about, is this like what I should be doing? Like, shouldn't I, like you said in the very beginning, like, yo, I should like be traveling the world and seeing it. You saw that from a movie. But there are some people that have come into contact with these people and it's changed their lives forever. And it's hard because the program is constantly reinforcing itself. So long story short, no, we're not in the Matrix, but there's definitely some programming happening, and we're all a part of it. Yeah. Yeah. If you got a TV or a radio or a phone or you're in the program.
I got one last question before we wrap this up and get into the popcorn. And that is, how could Cypher connect to the Matrix while negotiating with Smith?
Oh man, this is a great question. Yo, that's bugged me for like 15 years, man. There's just not they don't even show it because it doesn't even make sense. Cause like he would have had to lay down, put the joint in the back of his head, be in the joint, pull it. It's just the mechanics of it don't even happen. It's not even it can't happen. It's a great fault with the movie, right?
Yeah.
It's really just that whole thing with Cypher though, like we talked about in the beginning, is really just about giving you as the audience the chance to consider would you really make that? Would you make that choice if you could?
Mm.
And I think if Cypher said, like, if Cypher just went to them and said, "Hey, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this no more. Just put me back in." Maybe they would have did it, right?
Mm.
But the thing I'm talking about the crew. The
Yeah,
crew
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar might have been like, "Cool, you got it. Whatever. We'll put you back in." But the fact that he had to get it by like
Murder.
betraying Morpheus, that's the part that everybody has the issue with. Like, you don't want to do this, fine. Go your own way. That's cool. This is not you're not built for this. Okay. But the fact that he had to tear the whole thing down in the process, that's what people hate. So yeah, no, there's
Turncoat.
no way Cypher's getting in there. No, somebody would come in there, look at him, look in the Matrix, see what he was doing, and then they rip the joint out of his head and he'd be dead and that'll be it.
Mm-hmm.
On to the popcorn. so, so, so look, we're not burying the lead on this one,
Smooth
man. Yo,
transition.
popcorn. Yeah, popcorn. Thank you. I'm trying to work on it. Popcorn. Yo, 5 boxes for me, man.
And I'm right there
It's a
with you.
great movie.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you.
It's a great. It's a great movie. It's one of those movies that if you were talking to somebody and they told you that they've never seen the Matrix, you would look
Mm.
at them sideways.
Yeah.
You'd be like, you never saw the Matrix? Like, what have you been doing for the last 20 years? Even people that don't like movies like The Matrix.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's that. All right, so let's get on to the closeout themes. So this is one thing I just wanted to spend a little time on this real quick. Um, we talked about how this movie is about Neo's journey along the hero's journey, but I also think there's like well, that is what it is. But there's also a couple elements I think that are in this that are keys to transformation for life for all of us to consider. And it's like four things. And the first is that the idea of your life changes when you decide to search for the truth. And we, like you said from the very beginning, we grow up being told everything, told what's right, what's wrong, what's safe, what's dangerous, all those things. And you buy into that for a while. But at some point, you begin to try to search out the truth. And the truth is always in the uncomfortable place that you don't want to go, but you feel is pulling you towards it. Right. So the first thing is like you have to search for the truth. The second thing is that the truth is also trying to find you while you're trying to find it. So like how they always say that expression that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Right? This is like ancient wisdom kind of thing. I think that when you're on the path to finding out the truth is also finding you. So it's like you get in contact with people that think kind of along where you're going,
Mm.
or you see something that you never saw. You notice something that continues that journey. I think that is like both of those forces trying to come together. And you see this in the movie because Neo is trying to find Morpheus while Morpheus is also trying to find Neo, right? The next thing is the idea that to get to the truth, you have to kill your old reality
Mm.
and with it, your old self. So for Neo, he has to give up being Thomas Anderson. And for us, when we want to really transform and change our lives, we have to give up the attachments to our old identity. So it's like, you see like simple ideas of this, like when somebody, decides they, like you were saying, wants to get healthy. If somebody wants to get healthy, they're not going to hang out with people that aren't healthy anymore. They're not going to hang out with people who smoke. They're going to hang out with people who drink. Those people always say, yo, you changed. And you're right, you did change. You're right, you did. Because you had to kill that old version of yourself in order to evolve. And then the last part is that once you make that transition, you have to accept where you are from that point forward. and live in that new reality. And that's where Neo is at the end of the Matrix. He real in the first Matrix movie. He's accepted, okay, I am the one. I can do all these things. Now my life is going to begin brand new. And for us, when you're really talking about real transformation in your life, once you've searched for the truth, the truth has found you, you've destroyed your old thing, now you're obligated to live in your new reality in all of its fullness. So I think that's like what you're seeing play out in the Matrix, in addition to, as I said, the hero's journey.
Whew. I'm left the mic smoking. I ain't no joke. Oof. Oof. Wow. Those are powerful closing words. I'm not gonna try and outdo that. I'm gonna let CJ close us out with uh some uh some good news. Some good news.
some some housekeeping stuff.
Yeah.
So just once again, like just to remind everybody, this is our 33rd show. We are closing out season 3.
33.
We got look right 33, right? Talking about Neo, talking about the Christ figure, right? Everything is in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is our 33rd show. We are going to take some time off. We will be back at the beginning of May. This is depending on when you listen to this. May 2024. We will be back. We're going to take a couple of weeks off, but as always, the Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and your comments help us to do this better. Peace.